I've always been curious. You've mentioned that you've only met 2 or 3 people who, personally, who were as talented as you were as a poet.
Yeah.
I would be interested in knowing who those 2 or 3 people were, and not only that were as talented, but that you say may have had more talent. And let's talk about the idea of talent as well as because we were talking about talent realized and talent to become a great poet you need to persist at it and maintain the talent and make it grow. So let's end off on this anecdote.
Well, the first one is my wife Jessica, um, and the problem with Jessica is that she has never really believed in herself. Jessica gets sidetracked very easily. Jessica Jessica is too goddamn emotional. Jessica lets things get to her and under her skin, and this disrupts this disrupts her artistically because even I've got great powers of concentration, but there are times when I'm angry, if I came home from work angry, or if I have some personal go on, or something that I'm just shaking and whatnot. But those happen maybe in an average year 2 or 3 times. In the 17 years Jessica and I have been together, if it's happened maybe 30 times, I doubt it. So maybe 30 days that I couldn't do something. And usually I make up for it on other days when I was planning not to do something. But Jessica is much too attuned, or much too enslaved by her own emotions, that when bad things happen in her life, and even when not bad things happen, but just things that she doesn't like, she makes things worse. And so I can say, and I don't mean this in the hubristic way, but I, as an artist, as a mind, as a creator, am responsible for two great artists. Myself initially, and my wife Jessica. Because without me as sort of the Rock of Gibraltar, I don't think Jessica would be what she is. I don't. She might now be crawling towards working on her first great novel. She might have written 2 or 3 great poems or whatnot. But because I'm there, she's someone who has been able to maximize her potential because I'm just sort of like a rock. In the last 6 months, I finished a book and I started another book that I know that's going to be great. Although how it's going to end up totally at the end, I'm not sure of. But Jessica isn't someone able to do that. She has to have placidity. She can't write in different forms. I can tune things out. The second person is a fellow named Gregg Clark, who's on my missing in action poets list. And Gregg Clark was a guy I had first met at a poetry group that was run by this nut job who was an alcoholic, and then there was another guy there who thought he was Jesus. He was one of these what do they call him? Jew. He was a Jew for Jesus, uh, and uh, and then there were a few other nut jobs, but the only person that really, and some of them had some talent and had, I really wish that they would have stuck with it, but the rest of them, it's just a passing phase. But the one guy was this fellow named Gregg Clark, and I don't have any of his goddamn poems. I wish I had and could put him online. I don't know if he's alive or dead. I remember he moved to Australia in the late 90s to be with a woman, then moved back a year or so later, and he was a great poet before I was. In '93, when I started going to this group, he was had already written probably at least 6 or 7 great poems that I saw. I would project out that he probably has a few dozen, knowing what he was writing. Whether he that has passed him, I don't know. But I would Greg Clark, who used to live in Minnesota in the Twin Cities in the early to mid '90s, then moved to Australia, then came back. Jessica met him one time. Uh, but he was one of the great lyric poets. He was his lyric and love poetry was as identifiable as that of any other great love poet. Someone like an E. Cummings, although he didn't write like Cummings, but he had his own milieu. There wasn't mistaking a Greg Clark poem. Uh, Another one is Dylan Wall. He called himself Dylan Garcia Wall, but he's not Hispanic. That's just his second wife's name that he wanted to go ethnic. Um, but he had potential. When I first met him, I think he's about 6 years younger than me, 6, 7 years younger than me. He was kind of enamored of my poetry. I've lost touch with him because I've been trying to contact him because He actually did a cable TV show. He did a handful of episodes for in the 1990s. He has the video of me writing a great sonnet on camera in about 45 minutes. I've asked him. I've been trying to contact him. I can't get a hold of him. And his wife has a Facebook page, and he's not on it. So I don't know if he
This was
divorced.
done on the show.
It was done. He came. He no. He came to my writing room in Minnesota, and I said, "Okay, set up your camera, and I'm going to pick it." And so I pulled down from a clipboard ideas I had for poems. I said, "How about I write a poem about this?" I don't remember which poem it was. Jessica remembers which one it was, but I said, "Okay, I'll write a poem about this." So I said, "Okay, here's the idea." So I'm going to write about this. So blah blah blah. So I wrote out a first draft in about 5 or 6 minutes of the 14 lines. I went back, I revised it 3 or 4 times over the 45 minutes. At the end, I had a great sonnet, and it's one of my omnisonnets. I don't remember which one though, and it's an amazing document. You could do if just those 45 minutes online, if I had them. And I got to remind myself. I got to contact him again. I've contacted him a couple of times over the last year or so, and the son of a bitch is either trying to avoid me or whatnot. But he had a lyric ability uh, with his poetry, but it was more self-centered and more juvenile. It didn't grow as much as it should have been, but lyrically he had a lot of talent. So he those are probably the three that come to mind: Jessica, Gregg Clark, and Dylan Wall.